Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, well-being, and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal well-being.
Welcome to the 218th episode of the award-winning Diverse Minds podcast, and it is the last day of Black History Month in the UK. And this year's theme was all about saluting our sisters, so do check out episodes 214 to 217 to hear more about this theme. I spoke to incredible women, Abby, Mukelwa, and Jimmy, about their work and how we can move past stereotypes to valuing people and amplifying voices. Speaking of amplifying voices, have you watched my TEDx talk about the connection between culture, race, and mental health? It's something you can watch in your break as it's just 12 minutes long, and the link is in the show notes, but I'll also give it to you here, bit.ly/TEDx Wolves, that's WOLVESLO. I really hope you enjoy it because it was a labor of love, and if you did, please leave positive comments on YouTube, share and like, and also don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. Today, I'm going to be talking about workplace behaviour change journeys, what this means and how to do this. And this episode is inspired by my dear friend, Dr. Jonathan Ashong-Lamptey, and check out the celebratory podcast episode number 200 to find out more and learn more about his work and our deep dive conversation. So to round up this podcast series, I wanted to talk about starting behaviour change journeys and finishing them. This is the key. Because with equality or equity, diversity, inclusion and belonging, as it's often known, we see organizations picking and choosing short-term activities like one-off training sessions and then waiting and wanting for something to change and messaging a trainer or facilitator and saying, I don't think that's good enough, or having coaching sessions for senior leadership team, but then not passing that information on and not looking at policies, practices and procedures that could be changed to really shift things for everyone. Another example is asking for bespoke examples, essentially asking for rote learning of, well, what should I say, and give me a script. And the reality is we have to learn from our knowledge, our lived experience, our own lived experience, and be open to continuous learning. So I really hope you're enjoying the content of this podcast so far and if you want to keep up to date. And if you do, then why not join my bi-monthly newsletter? When you join, you'll receive a free copy of my 200 podcast episode guide with clickable links, and you've got a free resource document there to get advice and insights on mental health and inclusion. And that link is bit.ly/DMPG23. So the reason I wanted to go into this topic a bit more is that, of course, many of my friends talk about the fact that Black History Month is the hypervisibility of Black people, history and cultures for 31 days, and then it disappears. And really, it's about Black History 365, and it's a conscious shift to truly understanding Black contributions and excellence and legacies in society today. But by placing anti-racism and anti-Blackness at the core of what we do inside and outside of our work, it's about moving from having a great time in October, which I sincerely hope you have, to taking meaningful action. So the initiative I wanted to talk about, if we think about starting and completing and continuing workplace behaviour change journeys, is race-reciprocal mentoring. So let's break this down by explaining what exactly do I mean? Because often I say this phrase, race-reciprocal mentoring, and people are like, what is she talking about? So firstly, let's define mentoring. Now, mentoring is any form of social learning where someone with more experience, the mentor, helps guide the learning and growth of someone with less experience, the mentee. And I've taken that from mentorclick.com/blog, what is mentoring? So I wanted to give the credit there. So that's the overall arching definition that I'm using today of mentoring. Now, there's several definitions, so there might be a definition that you like more. Then let's look at this idea I've talked about, which is reciprocal mentoring. So we've got mentoring, and then we've got the different types of mentoring. So firstly, we have traditional mentoring, and that's a relationship between a senior member and a junior member of an organization that's created to help the junior member's career develop within the organization, or essentially someone more senior mentors someone more junior in the same organization or different organizations. Then you might have also heard of reverse mentoring. So reverse mentoring is all about a relationship between a senior member and a junior member of an organization, created to help the senior member to be mentored by the junior member to understand the barriers that they face. So we're flipping that around in on itself, basically. So if you've ever watched Back to the Shop Floor, where CEOs go back to the shop floor, whether it's a charity or retail or a restaurant, usually the staff members don't know who they are, and they kind of learn about the barriers and what's going on. So in essence, someone more junior saying, hey, I'm going to mentor you on what it's like because you won't be able to see the challenges in the organization because you're too senior. So essentially flipping that relationship. And then we've got reciprocal mentoring. And this is something I feel really passionately about. And it's a non-hierarchical relationship specifically designed for the mutual exchange of information and perspective to enable a pair to understand one another and the organizational challenges better. And that's the key. So you can say, well, wait a second, how can you really create non-hierarchical relationships in an organization? Because there's always hierarchy, and pretty much there always is. And that would be an excellent and very fair question to ask. And my answer to that is it comes down to the actual process, which I'm going to talk about. So what is it about reciprocal mentoring and the positive impacts of it? And if we think about starting behavior change journeys, finishing them, and then continuing them in a different way, this is really, really essential. So an HR organization in the Metro Toronto area. I always quote this piece of research. It's from a conference in 2018 from Helen Patterson and Lauren Charbon, and they have done a lot of work in this area. And I always quote this paper, is they found that reciprocal mentoring is particularly effective over traditional and reverse mentoring at attracting, retaining, and engaging high performers. It helps to upgrade employee skills and knowledge. It fosters a collaborative environment, promotes diversity of thought and style, develops leadership talent. It also develops a line of succession and preserves institutional memory and creates inclusion. So you might be thinking, well, how is this better than a normal traditional mentoring program? And I think the key is this is where we have to look at the race element of it, because the race element of it is looking at lived and personal experiences and understanding that. So usually with race reciprocal mentoring programs in senior leadership teams, not always, but senior leadership teams that I've worked with, they are predominantly white, and then staff getting promotions or they're matched with people from Black, global majority and diaspora communities. So why is there a need for race reciprocal mentoring? Well, if you're new to the show, I will talk you through this top 5 areas. But if you're a long-term listener, you'll know that we talk about this in so many podcast episodes. So things like being the only Black, global majority or diaspora person in the room, so therefore there's a lack of belonging and being made to feel like an outsider, being labeled as the difficult person or troublemaker when you are just talking about key issues. And actually, someone spoke to me about this yesterday, saying that they highlighted the challenge that Black women in the workplace faced in this particular organization, carrying the labor, the institutional labor, and having their work taken and credited by white people in their department. And within 3 hours, they received an email saying you're going on gardening leave. So if you're thinking, well, I think maybe Layla's being a bit dramatic about this, that is one example that someone shared with me only yesterday. Being asked to then be the face of diversity in addition to the day job when they don't want to do that, and particular assumptions and expectations of someone's ability based on how they look, not on their skills, experience, thinking about their training potential and capacity. So the impacts of race reciprocal mentoring are to really motivate peers to take action that really makes a change for underrepresented staff. And in this case, we're talking about race. To help challenge beliefs and behaviors with peers and influence decision-making, because once that relationship is built and those conversations are had, people do start to have light bulb moments. Enhanced ability to be a more effective agent of change through hearing lived experiences. There's also an increased understanding of the way in which behaviors, beliefs, my favorite phrase, policies, practices, and procedures impact upon the lived experience of staff. So there are things that you have to do to create this behavior change journey, finish it and kind of continue it and change it as you go on. And the reason I say that this is a behavior change program is it's not, you might think, well, you've just said one-off training sessions, and what about this being a one-off program? So that's another element to it, is that once you have done a number of matchings and pairings, or however you want to run your program, you need to then think about what are the projects and things that come out from this that give it the longevity. Because really with the behavior change, it happens on lots of levels, doesn't it? It's the individual, the departmental, and the organizational levels. So if you watch my TEDx talk, I talk more about that. And I think when you consider a program like this to really make a success, or to really get off with a flying start for your behavior change journey, you've got to firstly think about senior leadership buy-in and sponsorship. So who is going to be the face of the program to get buy-in from people? And it has to be genuine. And I think that's very important. If, you might be going for an award or a charter mark, it's important, but really you need to get someone who feels passionately about this. Secondly, think about the clarity of your program. So what do I mean by clarity? Timings, how it's going to work, communications, the way in which the matching is going to be done. You need to be really, really clear about this. And it might be that you set up a working group. Thirdly, the training and the matching. So the way I do this is I always train the two groups separately, the senior leadership group and the senior leader mentors and the staff mentors. So this is really, really important because they need slightly different sessions and things need to be done differently to tailor to those groups. And then from that, doing the matching, and the matching needs to be done carefully. And also, the other thing that can help the matching is to have application process. But if your numbers are small, you might not need that. So that links back to the clarity of the program. Then once your program's off and running, you need to think about when you're going to have check-ins. So usually I would say a midpoint check-in. And I would also say the usual duration of a program when I run them is around 6 months. And then finally, celebrating the success. So there is a lot to consider. And please remember, if you want help to run a program, get in touch with me. I've run programs at City University, Liverpool John Moores, and with the charity Place to Be. And I'm currently running a program for AHUA, the Association of Heads of University Administration. So please do get in touch to find out more, because it is about starting that journey, finishing it, and going through the process, which is so important because if we really want to see change, it's essential. So there are lots of ways we can think about a Black History Month 365 approach. Reciprocal mentoring is a non-hierarchical relationship designed to enable the mutual exchange of information, even if one mentor is more senior than another. And this type of mentoring focuses on an equitable relationship. The race element aims to build understanding between someone white and someone who identifies as global majority, Black and/or diaspora. And the goal is to understand each other's experience of race, culture, and barriers to progression to positively impact organizational culture and change through the individual experience, thinking about the departmental experiences and the organizational change of those policies, practices, and procedures. And it creates that behavior change as people are engaging on a deep and meaningful level, looking at their lived experiences, learning to understand, moving from depersonalized theory to the personalized experience. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. Why not leave me a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast from, and you can leave a review. And also please get in touch with me to find out more about how I can help you with workplace behaviour change journeys and race-reciprocal mentoring. You can email me at Leyla, Leyla, at diverseminds.co.uk. And the resources for this episode are, don't forget episodes 214 to 217 for saluting our sisters this year's Black History Month. Episode 200 with Dr. Jonathan Ashong-Lamptey. I've also included a blog for you about race-reciprocal mentoring programs, and that's on the Diverse Minds website. And finally, don't forget to keep looking at the blackhistorymonth.org.uk website. So until then, everyone, take care, and we will be kicking off November with a whole podcast series on equity and well-being in parenting. Until then, take care.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.